Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and I've got a lot of personal things going on inside my head because I want to draw, and then when I look at, I've got my Bristol board on my bed, I've got like just a couple of pencils I scrounged up and a couple markers, so this is like the least professional how to draw video ever, continuing the trend of me being the number one least professional Marmaduke fan channel on YouTube, but I want to do something inspired by Ethan Van Sciver, and I can't believe that I added an extra R to his name when I was talking about his channel earlier. Ethan Van Sciver, not Ethan Van Scriver, oh foolish number one Marmaduke fan from the past, and Comic Artist Pro Secrets, which I'm sure if you're seeing this video, you should be aware of. It's like what? It's the sad clown on the street telling you, hey, this Charlie Chaplin guy, you should go check him out. He's pretty cool, right? So yeah, if you are a fan of the number one Marmaduke fan show, go check out EVS. I have an idea for a comic project, and I think it'd be fun if a lot of people did this to EVS, because I think you get a kick out of waking up and seeing a whole bunch of drawings based on this. But he posted 3 photos on Twitter, and that's like on the night of October 30th, and he says, okay, I'm sick of... I don't think I'll dox myself. Okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, I'm sick of finding weird photos around my property. These were in a wooden cigar box in my crawl space. I'm sure it's fine, but then we've got this great scene of trees and I guess grain silos and an interior and a little girl in a Donald Duck costume, really creepy one. And I really dig this kind of stuff. And I think it'd be hilarious for EVS to wake up and see like a bunch of comics inspired by that. I said on Twitter, start a comic where one of those pictures is the opening panel. I think I'm going to use all 3 panels as opening shots since they work so well as an establishing shot, zoom in, and the introduction of a character. I want to address why the heck I'm drawing on my bed and why I do so many videos in my bed. Is I suffer from insomnia on some nights, and it's really bad. Like I don't want to take like addictive sleep medication, so I'll take like over-the-counter non-addictive sleep medication. That won't help me at all. So I'll just work or draw if I can't sleep. So that's what I need to do today. I also moved out of my apartment recently, and it's kind of a tough move. I had to throw out a bunch of stuff, gave away some art. So I no longer have my professional studio set up, which is okay because I think it'll illustrate a point, which is that I believe that you should be able to make work in any environment, and that it's important to be able to work flexibly. So I'm kind of embarrassed of myself for not having my nice table and my nice supplies all together, but this is kind of on a whim. I'm up late, I want to draw. EVS has given me some inspiration, and I want to crank something out to maybe put a smile on his face. So I'm going to draw quickly. I'm going to play EVS videos in the background just so I have something to listen to, and I'm going to see if I can sneak this phone like under my leg or something so that I can focus more on the paper. What do I want to say? Okay, it is important for an artist to have multiple ways of working and being able to work flexibly. So go outside with a sketchbook and draw. Stay inside in your studio and draw. Read a book by an old master and copy pictures from the old master. Go watch people riding their bicycles and zooming by real fast. So consistently on this channel, you kind of see me doodle a little bit, doodle some kind of just like goofy, quick pictures. I do have a realistic style, but I feel kind of sad because now that I'm out of art school and kind of away from all the nice, live models and stuff, I feel like I've been slacking off on my realistic drawing. But though I do draw every day, I draw quick, loose sketches every day. But I guess for me, this channel has kind of been a way of me thinking through my passion for art, really kind of recommitting myself to art. So in live, you're kind of seeing number one Marmaduke fans, not midlife crisis, maybe quarter life crisis. But I am really passionate about my art. I have kind of, I think I've gotten over just like that moment, that time period in my life where I had self-doubt and I thought I couldn't do it. And now I'm at the point where I feel like, yes, I can make art. I know I can make art. I just have to make time and have the good habits which allow that to happen. So even if I'm sometimes a little bit embarrassed about the quality of the art, it's more important that I make time to do it. So with that little psychological self-evaluation out of the way. Let's draw a bit and let's listen to some EVS. And let's see if I can finagle a way to show you what I'm drawing as I go. I'm using some real Bristol. From my old days of trying to do my own comic and really hoping I could get into the industry, and then kind of finding out, oh, it's not like it was in the old days. But my plan is to make my own webcomic. I'm not going to talk about that here because I want that to be its complete own project that's judged on its own merits and not judged just by connection to this channel. But the pattern seems to be passionate about comics, make a comics. If you're lucky, you break in. So let's draw. And as a reminder, we're going to base what I'm drawing off of EVS's tweets of creepy photos he found in his attic, because that's absolutely the type of thing I love taking inspiration from. That's beautiful. Here we go. I'm not even going to watch what he's doing. I'm just going to listen to him talk in the background to give him the plays and the clicks and hear him talk a bit, since this is kind of in his honor. Okay, I'm going to start. Draw quick.
Do you want some pumpkins?
Am I blocking this?
Then you came to the right place. We're on a day ride at Johnson's
Okay, there we go.
Farm in New Jersey. We're gonna go get some pumpkins, so come with us.
So if you do this, you can take more time in the project if you like, but I'd encourage you to try to draw in 40 minutes or try to do it maybe in the length of time of a couple videos, because I do believe in taking your time to slowly build a drawing and, work on the details, but I don't know what he's up to. I'm going to turn the volume down slightly just in case I want to talk. So speed, drawing quick and drawing slow. So for professional projects, for projects where you're taking seriously, your understanding of depth of field or form or shading, you want to take your time on it. But you need speed also, because a lot of, especially in life drawing where the model's moving or where someone's riding on a bicycle, you don't have that long to observe them. So you're making really immediate observations. Now with photographs, it can be easy to fall into the trap of spending too long. What am I even saying? I'm just bloviating. Maybe I should draw more and talk less. Maybe. I guess my point could be summarized to, it's good to draw fast sometimes, it's good to draw slow sometimes. And I'm going to be drawing a little bit more on the fast side today to crank out a dank May for our boy EVS. All right, so I've done some breakdowns. I'm going to go right into inking with this. I'm self-conscious. I gotta get over my self-consciousness a bit because I'm showing you my art butt a little bit. You can all point and laugh a bit. So whatever. This will be rough. This will be quick. But let's have fun. Let's draw. Let's get over that hang-up, dudes. Do. So it's an old grain silo with like wooden beams. I'm practically ignoring my breakdowns here. guess I was saying before, because I'm going right from pencil breakdowns into inks and not even using like brush or something I'd prefer, I just grabbed the marker that was next to my bed. That means we're going to go for, looseness. We're going to go for quick observations and the idea of the building rather than every brick on the building. And I think what I was trying to get at earlier with life drawing is sometimes when you have to draw quickly, you have to observe ideas of how the body's kind of, they're breathing, they're fidgeting, they're twitching, and that isn't contained necessarily within a photograph. Sure, a photograph can capture a model's expression or emotional state beautifully, but it's capturing 1 second, whereas a live person they're constantly changing and moving around. So I'm not saying don't use photographs, but I'm saying have photographs be part of your repertoire along with videos, along with spending time with family and friends. Give yourself lots of experiences that can inform your view and your imagination, your look on life. By the way, we got to reset that counter. Days without Marmaduke Fan saying something that he wonders means he should be institutionalized in the padded room. It's right back down to a big old 0, guys. I'm having fun. I do art. I work in a semi-arts related field, so it's not like my arts degree is going to waste. I just don't have much time these days for very personal or very fun projects, so it's kind of good for my health to find opportunities to draw. And when an idea really hits you and you're really passionate about it, like one thing to think about is how much time can you devote to just a fun little idea if it's not something that you're personally getting paid for. And I think the fun little personal projects are important. You need them to just stay fresh. You need them to kind of remind yourself of how much you love your art. I'm almost having like a face show up there. And it's okay to draw a little quickly on those, because that you're more just kind of staying warm, you're having some fun, you're sharing some ideas, and maybe you're building towards working on a looser style where you can work more quickly and more loosely to help you capture things more quickly, which is especially helpful for things where it's hard to find photographic references for, it's hard to imagine it. I always go back to, a man on a bicycle or a woman on a bicycle as the example, right? Because you can find photographs of people riding bicycles. You can probably find videos of people riding bicycles, but what's it look like to see a bicycle go zooming past you? What's the energy of that fear like? How scared are you when that happens and it comes out of nowhere and you're a little worried, right? So that kind of experience you get by going outside. So if you're a artist or an author in the comics industry and you don't have just much experience outside of like a cubicle or the ideological bubble that you occupy in wherever your office is, get some fresh air, and gain life experiences. See people interacting with each other. See people, doing cool stuff out in the street. See people breaking stuff. I don't know. Just give yourself opportunities to have more life experiences. And you don't even need to like go on a big expensive trip to Europe to do it. Tree branches. Okay, tree branches are so tricky. They're easy to get wrong. When I'm drawing them in a bit more of a serious representational style, I'll kind of carefully study the shape of the tree. And I'll worry about the shape of the tree more than the individual branches, because the shape is what gives the tree its feel. When I'm just sketching out, I'll move my hand a little bit faster and just try to establish it more quickly. It's thinking about space versus thinking about line again. Okay, so I've talked in the past about thinking about form versus thinking about line. And the point I was trying to make was that a cartoonist tends to think about line because everything they're drawing can be simplified to lines. Hergé, it's called the linge clair style, the clear line style, whereas thinking about form is different. Whereas when drawing a contour line drawing, you're drawing the outline of the body. You're drawing the muscles within the body as lines. When thinking about form, everything is 3 dimensions. Everything is tonal. And that way of thinking is probably better if you want to develop a representational style, because if you don't understand how the body exists in 3 dimensions and, how light wraps around it and, the play of warm and cool light on a human body, it can be hard to just imitate that with line drawing or with photo references. So I was saying form, and I've got to keep track of the train of thought. So I was saying form and line, and then I was saying, great, shape and line. So looking at a large object's shape. Okay, so let's use this tree as an example. So I see in his photo, basically a triangle, right? But then with funny shapes coming off it. So I'm trying to retain the idea of a triangle, and I'm paying attention to, how long branches are. I'm not paying attention to every leaf right now, but sort of like this sweeping branches down here, and I can kind of see that curve. And right now I'm just kind of eyeballing it because I'm going quickly. If I had my tools, I'd kind of measure it out, and I'd figure out if one branch was too long or too short, and really try to capture the very distinct individual flavor of that tree when going quickly. That's what a sketch is. A sketch is more immediate observations. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. All right, so there's a lot of texture. Now I've got to think about whether I want like beautiful clear panels or whether I want maybe something a bit more artsy. Let's look at the next photo. So I do want some foliage down here though. Kind of change the height of that ladder a bit. I draw right on top of my old inks, which makes for, sometimes there's some lack of clarity and there's some kind of scribbliness to it, but it's called history. And not when artists talk about a drawing having history, they mean kind of you can see the underdrawing, you can see, where they painted white on top of it and then tried again. You can see all the mistakes as well as what was the finished part of it. And I think the reason for that is, the Renaissance artists were trying to save paper. They saw drawing as a way of preparing for a final painting. They weren't looking at drawing as the finished product. So, and they'd even take their physical drawings and use those they'd poke holes in them so they could trace. It's not exactly tracing. It was there was this Renaissance technique where you would poke holes within a drawing, kind of connect the dots, and then you would dust charcoal or chalk through that, and that would go through onto the new sheet of paper or onto the canvas, and you would connect the dots of the drawing you had laid out. So the piece of paper you used for the drawing was literally just a tool in preparing for the finished painting, which is one reason why they're not always in that great a shape. Some people did collect them, poor patrons collect them, but the Renaissance artists were a painting-focused group of artists. And with comics, it's always had black and white line art with color added on top of that in very simple color. So historically, comics hasn't always been a very painterly medium, which is why I think the contemporary Photoshop color doesn't gel so well. I can't listen that much, and since I'm not really watching him, I'm looking at the photos for ideas. I'm going to go ahead and mute our boy EVS. I'll catch up on his new vids later. So I was thinking about whether I'd have a really clear transition. I don't know. Man, this is ultimate. My brain going in every directions today because I don't know what I've talked about, how I got to where I'm at. Let's focus on drawing again. Pretty much, what kind of panel transition do I want? I think I'm going to be a little bit artsy, and since this texture is becoming abstract over here from the tree, we're going to gradually transition this into the texture of the wall of the interior. Okay, so that curve. Yeah, so it'll be like unclear borders, but there's actually is kind of a nice border here. So we'll have an implied border, but it won't be, a beautiful white gutter implying that distinction. It'll be kind of like, I don't know, some hazy expressive lines. I don't know, I'm breaking my own rules here because I've always praised the use of white gutters in a lot of the comics I've seen because I think they help provide compositional unity, they help provide clarity in reading, and there are artistic effects that can occur from breaking down panel borders, but sometimes you're sacrificing legibility for an artistic effect, and comics is a medium that's meant to be read. So paintings are a bit more of a medium for having, absolute artistic freedom. You're not worried about telling a story necessarily in painting, but I'm talking about pure painting, where you're just creating ideas, maybe creating abstract images, as opposed to the technique of painting, which you might use within a comic story or a... Man, ultimate bloviation. If you guys do this challenge and draw EVS's Twitter pics to make a comic, go ahead and tweet that at me, because I want to see what you do. I want to see people who maybe are a bit more YouTube savvy than I am. Just kind of listen to how you talk through ideas and get ideas off your head. You might have a bit more of a thesis than I do. I have no thesis for that one. The only thesis I have is I would love for you to go do this. Oh, and I was talking to someone on Twitter. Who was my boy? Hold on, I want to figure out who my boy is. It's my boy... Eric Hutfels is one of my boys, and he's an illustrator. Man, I got to ask him if he'll do this. But it was my boy Boomsan Augustin at Roundup Boom. And my boy at Roundup Boom, I'm trying to tempt him to do this and draw a comic for EVS, even though he says he's never drawn before. But while I was talking to him, that gave me the idea. I want to start the #1 Marmaduke Fan Emerging Talent Award. It'll be as serious as the Eisner guys. Maybe even more serious than the Eisner. But pretty much this is an award that's eligible, that's open to people who have not drawn, let's say, for 3 years or so. So if you haven't drawn a picture in 3 years or so, you are in the running for being a #1 Marmaduke Fan Emerging Artist Award recipient. By participating in some drawing challenges and just draw some stuff for our boy EVS. It doesn't have to be specifically my idea of a comic for EVS. Any comic inspired by EVS's Twitter or EVS's channel will work for the #1 Marmaduke Fan Emerging Talent Award. And I'll do a doodle of something goofy or ridiculous for you, since I seem to be cursed with this bizarre set of random thoughts where sometimes it can be kind of funny. Maybe I'm not insane. Maybe I'm not just a lonely guy talking into my phone in my bedroom at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. No, I'm happy. Boy, what should I talk about? I can't talk about too much personal stuff because I want to... Gosh, I'm pretty much using this YouTube channel for amateur therapy at this point. Okay. Don't worry, guys. I'm a happy dude. Okay, so this is water damage, so it should have a bit more of a vertical feel to it. A bit dreary. And it's creepy because there's age along the edges of it. That comes up. I have to be careful because I don't ever want to get doxxed, but I do want to talk a bit about personal artistic experiences and how that's informed me. So let me think about what I've said before. So I've mentioned before on this channel that I was a art student and I graduated. I've mentioned before that I'm a tutor, and that's where I work more regularly. I'm pursuing a career outside of the arts just for job prospects, but I don't want to stop doing art, and I do drawing every day, even if it's not, highly representational drawing, and I want to kind of continue. I think I did develop some pretty good skills in representational art, but I'm self-conscious enough that I don't think I could break in at my current level. I couldn't be doing like Marvel and DC stuff. Maybe if I really, pulled for it, I could kind of push myself to that level of quality if I went really slow and really careful. But comics is a very speedy, deadline-focused medium. So when I give a constructive critique, I kind of want to be able to put my money where my mouth is and not just roast someone for making art that I don't dig. I want to constantly be pushing myself to make better and better art, the kind of art that I want to see others making, even if there are weaknesses or inconsistencies in my style that I see. So I think it's easy for a lot of people to get down on themselves, and I'm not talking about myself. I was usually pretty confident in my abilities and my ability to just buckle down and get projects done, even if I didn't quite feel up to it at the time. I had friends who would get really down in the dumps about their ability, wonder if they should drop out of art and take another field. And, you know, sometimes you may not have what it takes to do art to put bread on the table every day, but that doesn't mean that you can't do art, you know? You can do art for your own pleasure. You can do art for your friends and your family. You can, who was it? Is it T.S. Eliot? T.S. Eliot was a banker, and he's one of the most, you know, kind of well-remembered poets in, you know, the history of British poetry, pretty much. So you can do a, you know, a different career outside of the arts. You don't have to work for Marvel Comics or DC Comics. You don't have to be drawing Batman to be fulfilled and to be a talented artist. You can develop that talent within yourself over a long period of time. I'm just going to throw in some quick lines there. Boy, what other triggering stuff can we talk about? I've talked about religion on the channel. I've shot some videos from inside church, so that's been a good experience for me. I've kind of had a real religious awakening, you know, in this past year of my life. All the triggers, all the spoilers. All right, all the triggers, guys. Sorry, atheist friends. I can't pretend I'm just some woke Reddit atheist forever. So let's just talk. So I was raised in a Christian household, and I believe I had, you know, a saving faith in Jesus at a young age, but I didn't really understand anything about what it was. I was stupid, right? I was a stupid little kid. I didn't understand anything about the world, and I think I had the same experiences that a lot of people had of starting to, you know, ask tough questions. You know, is the theory of evolution true? You know, that kind of. I came from like a kind of red state, very red-blooded American background, and that's still continues to inform who I am. And so then I'm in college, and I have this kind of sort of crisis of, oh, I don't know if any of this is true. So then my response to that was to just read as many old theology books as I could find and listen to all kinds of programs and debates. And my big questions were assuaged. I had major questions about, you know, like the Bible, the history of the church. Was it all just made up? And then I came away persuaded that my the faith of my childhood wasn't just, you know, something, you know, pretty to believe in. I came away persuaded that it was actually true, that it was historically true, that it's historically accurate, that the ideas of Christianity conform to reality. But you know, I'm in my 20s. You know, who cares about my opinion? Who cares, you know, about what I think? Who cares about my testimony? So, what that's leading me to kind of do is think about, well, what do I want to do, right? So I've kind of like come to peace with, you know, the classic questions that people think about. You know, who are you? Why are you here? What do you want to do with your life? And I have work I do. I take pleasure in my work. I'm really good at my job, and I'm happy doing that kind of work. But I'm also wondering, like, what kind of impact do I want to have in the future? And this is such a weird channel. Okay, but while I'm on this channel, you know, I'm talking about comics and comic books I love because comics are related to my love of art generally. I love art generally. I love stories generally. Comics are the medium that bring those two things that I love together into one thing. So I want to make comics, and even if I'm not making comics for Marvel or DC, I'll make my own comics because I have ideas for stories. I may not even. I'd have to kind of ask myself the question: if I were ever, you know, offered a job at Marvel or DC, would I take it? I might, just for kind of the romance of working for a company I admired as a childhood with characters I loved as a child. I might do it just to test my mettle a bit and see if I had what it would take to do it. But really, if I'm honest with myself, if I want to make comics, I want to make comics about subjects that I really care about and about, you know, either things from within my own imagination or things from within history that I really care about. I love history. That's kind of that's my problem is I'm interested in too much stuff that I sometimes have trouble focusing. I'm very much ADHD. I think I am. I don't remember if I was formally diagnosed with that, but I think I've known all my life that I am that. But that means that I'll get really interested in something and I'll get really preoccupied with thinking, oh man, this would be so cool. I'll do this. And then, then I'll get interested in another thing. Squirrel. And this channel reflects that, right? Everywhere there are shiny squirrels riding red herrings on top of a tiny saddle made out of fidget spinners, right? I get very distractible and interested in a variety of things. And this affects my art because then I'll sit down to do a big long project and I'll have all these ideas in my head, and then life will intervene, or I'll start working on something that's more career related, and things will get pushed to the side. And this scares me a bit about myself because I don't want to look back at this time in my life and think, oh man, I could have made all these beautiful artistic projects that I'm passionate about, but I just didn't prioritize it. So I do draw every day. I'm trying to develop good sketchbook making habits, good journaling habits, so that even if I don't have time to make like a big epic independent comic right now, I have the ideas there. I have the research there to help me, build the world and draw things that I'm not necessarily comfortable drawing. Like I can draw a face, but can I draw a car? I can draw, a person who's kind of slumping like they're grumpy, which is good for a scene, but can I draw a katana? When you do an action story with lots of stuff, some things are going to show up. Okay, so there's ice here, and then the problem is I want to have the duck in the foreground and then the ice in the background. So I think before I draw anymore, I better draw the fearsome nightmare fuel here in the front, and then we'll work out the background from there. And we need to give this character something epic to say. I'll do that in post. Now I got Clip Art Studio or Manga Studio when Zach recommended it. I just haven't had the time to teach myself how to do that. So kind of a Donald Duck character. I want to make the body language a little bit. I want to keep the timidity of that body language because I'm interested in body language, but I want to change the posing a little bit. All right, so I haven't penciled in a while. Let's actually break down a little bit because I need to understand the structure of where the face is pointing. I always start with a circle and a guard, kind of a grid mark. The Donald Duck mask itself is kind of droopy. Okay, so there's this. Where's the skull? So that's the thing. You draw a circle to start with, but you need some cranium in there, and that's where the hairs. They need to have room to keep their rain in. Squirrel Girl artist who shall not be named. And then we got this adorable collar. So the way I'm going to change it slightly is there's a twist to the body. I'm going to have everything pointing in this direction a little bit more. Let's see. I do want a slight twist to the body, though. Yeah, I will keep that kind of slump in the shoulders. Slump is not that dynamic, but... Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm just, repeating the same lines over and over again because I don't know how exactly I want to do it in my imagination. So let's do a chest, rib cage. Men, you can kind of give them a slightly more barrel-chested rib cage. Okay, 1, 2, this is a child, so it won't have, fully adult proportions. Pants. Okay. All the triggers, all the spoilers, all the tangents, both conversational and artistic. Tangents. So I've still got to do a video talking about my art teachers so that I can kind of keep straight who they are and not accidentally mention one of them. Because I never want to get doxxed. I never want people, who are friends or teachers of mine to get doxxed. But I do know what some of their code names would be. So the code name of one of them would be The One. And the reason that teacher's code name would be The One is she was the one that everyone talked about. She was the one who you would never want to be, late on your assignments for, and wouldn't take any excuses. And she's the one I'd be most afraid of if I did get doxxed, finding out I talked about her classes. But I have immense respect for the one, because this teacher conducted a very organized and a very structured classroom, and kind of helped me grow up a little bit, where I came in as, the all A student, thinking I'm all that, and then I kind of find out, oh, hey, I actually have things to learn from these teachers. You can't just be a teacher's pet. You actually have to put in some diligent effort, and you're going to get roasted a bit if you're playing fast and loose on the assignments. So art school was a experience for me where I was learning new skills, and it was also kind of a personable experience for me where I was learning life skills from these individuals. And that's the thing I would never trade away or give up. That's the part of my experience that may even be more important than the just technical expertise, the information about art history. That's all good stuff, but the life experiences of what have shaped who I am, and just my ability to I don't want to brag about myself too much, but I do think I have an ability to not give up on myself, even when I'm feeling down about whether I have the capacity to do something, whether I have the capacity to succeed. I think I do have the ability to say to myself, don't give up, you can do this. Jordan D. Peterson talks about this. A lot of what he talks about in his psychology presentations is about working out things within your own mind where both perspectives are valid, right? So, violence, it's important for you to be a little bit disagreeable, so you don't just go along with everybody and hope that they'll like you if you just do whatever they say, right? But then if you're too disagreeable, then you're getting in everybody's business and everybody's face. So those are two sides of a coin, where if you fall into either extreme, you're in kind of psychological trouble, you're in social trouble. So one extreme artistically is thinking you're all that and not recognizing your need to improve, and the other extreme is beating up on yourself and not getting things done. And I think I found a good balance in my life where I'll be able to look at this and say, okay, there's room for improvement, but not let that stop me from doing a drawing or spending all my time, bemoaning how I can never do it. That's something that's helped me about those Shonen Jump manga. They're so cheesy and they're so goofy and they're so juvenile, but there's something very human about, the idea of these superheroic characters with all these supernatural abilities, ninjas, pirates, but they connect with human audiences because the boy protagonists tend to be these sort of gumptious, gung-ho, I can do anything, even though they're a bit behind the eight ball, right? That's what I connected with Asta in Black Clover. Even it was so cheesy, and it was something I'd seen before in a lot of Shonen Jump manga, but it was just pleasing to see a story with that much sincerity and heart. Zach's talked about that. X-Men. It's a melodrama, it's soap opera-y, but people connect with those characters because they do have real human emotions. Sometimes it's exaggerated a bit for effect, but that's what makes that the reason you identify with a character who flies around and has, a crazy costume isn't because their costume is so crazy. It's because they have a humanity behind all that. That's the artistic side, I think. There's art and there's draftsmanship. Draftsmanship is looking at a drawing and saying, this hair is wrong, my technique is too loose, I need to tighten up a little bit more to get the details down right. I need to focus more on shape and the underdrawing and less on the details. That's technique. Or the humanness is the pathos of the art. But that's why I think Van Gogh is so well remembered. He did have an impressive technique in how he handled paint and how he put his compositions together. But when you look at how loose and crazy it is, we don't all talk about Van Gogh because he was a representational artist who mastered every little crevice and muscle and whisker of the human face and the human form. We talk about Van Gogh because he was so passionate and he brought so much passion into into the painting itself, where you can look at the painting and you feel something about that man's soul. And there's so much written about Van Gogh because he's so psychologically interesting. You know, he may or may not have committed suicide. He probably did commit suicide. He has all of these joyous paintings with so much beautiful color in it. Is there something psychological about that? Is he working out his demons by painting? I want to read his letters sometime and just talk about his letters because I'm so fascinated by. Everyone loves Van Gogh. He's one of the great. He's one of the artists that everyone knows, that he's a household name. But I'm particularly interested in reading. I read little summaries of his letters for, art history classes where they quote a few little pertinent details. I want to go read the real things, start to finish, for the first time. And I want to take notes and talk about on this channel what I learned. Because for me, this is a channel where I talk about, here's something I learned today. Guys, isn't this kind of cool? And I don't want to pretend I'm, an art professor or I have credentials that I don't have in these subjects. I want to just be humble enough to admit that I'm a student. I'm just someone who's casually interested in some of these subjects. When it comes to art history, I think I'm more than casually interested. I think I'm definitely, what's the word for it? I'm an amateur, but I'm an amateur with considerable passion for the subject and quite a bit of reading on the subject. So I feel like I could make videos that would be interesting and unique and helpful because I think looking at art history helps an artist. It's, again, part of my view that you should improve your work in lots of ways. You should improve your work by drawing, and you should improve your work by reading. You should read works of fiction, and you should read some works of nonfiction. And the benefit of studying all these artists who came before is some of them would have struggles that you might have. And so I'm gonna cheat a bit. The photo, everything is black, but I'm gonna have a little bit more. I'll have a little bit more grunge and texture in the clothing itself, these big dots. So the benefit of art history is that you look at guys like Caravaggio, right? You get into fights in bars and stuff, and he might have been insane or something. Great guy, people are interested in Caravaggio because he did interesting paintings, but also because he was a really interesting chapo who got himself in trouble a lot. That connects with what Diversity in Comics has said about Jack Kirby, that Jack Kirby lived an interesting life. So when he goes to write stories, he has, his Jewish upbringing and the Bible that he's drawing from. He has his war experiences, and he's lived a full life. Before the war experiences, he was scrounging around New York. He was finding comic books in the gutters and reading those, and that was his introduction to comics. So living an interesting life can help inform stories. But I also think that if you don't have the advantage of living in 1930s New York, you can't go back in time, then I'm going to cheat on the hand. I should have structured this out a little bit more. I shouldn't just be going right into inks without knowing what I'm doing. But since I'm drawing quickly and a bit more expressively, I'm showing you guys. Here it is. I am so lame. I am being so skimpy and lazy. There you go. But I'll try to hide it a little bit by using kind of expressive line work and shadow. So I'll try to be a little bit smart in my laziness. Art history. So the point of the art history is that it's informing. Oh, and life experiences in Jack Kirby. So since you can't go back to World War II and be a World War II soldier, you can inform your imagination through reading and through just observing human beings and human nature. You have to do that kind of observation, or everything you do is going to fall flat. It's not going to feel human. Like if you have superhero characters, what's their day off? Like how do they get along, on bowling night? What are their politics? Go ahead and put all the politics in your art, but have the politics actually feel like it's relevant to something in real life, which is part of the SJW Marvel comics. Man, all the tangents, guys, all of them. We're going to chase down every shiny squirrel riding a red herring on a fidget spinner saddle. And those squirrels are going to be covered in glitter. It is going to be so shiny and all the ADHD. today. Man, I just realized that I'm doing this to just kind of like tweet something fun at EVS, and he's gonna see this and think, "What the heck is this channel? This is the weirdest channel ever." All my hang-ups on full display for the world to see. Okay. Okay, I did have something I wanted to talk about. That was, so one of the reasons I was waiting so long at the beginning is, like usual, I had thoughts about things I could talk about that might be relevant to what I was doing, but I wasn't sure which one to talk about, so then I just kind of bloviated a bit, started drawing, and then let the ideas start flowing. So the idea I wanted to talk about was my idea for another channel, which I've hinted at and which I think I need to do, because this is fun. You know, being #1 Marmaduke fan is a blast. I get to talk about a lot of things, but I do need to do work and projects that I can look at down the road and say, yep, I put some work into making that look good. And what I think that needs to be is, that's the problem, is since I have so many interests, what should I focus on? Should I focus on art history? Should I focus on general history? Should I try to do something about social justice, or, you know, the alt-right? Should I try to do videos talking about why I think the alt-right is wrong? Should I do videos trying to talk about why I think Antifa is wrong? What should I do? And the dilemma for me is, if I get too interested in anything, then I might get distracted and I might never finish anything, or be too much of a jack of all trades, master of none. Try to do it all and not really contribute anything. And I'd like to contribute with my art, right? I'd like to contribute beautiful stories to the world with my art. When I research and talk about something in philosophy, I'd like to contribute to a conversation, maybe in a way that hasn't been done so far, you know, where there's a million people who are giving their perspective in a much more professional and maybe more carefully reasoned way than I could. So what can I add to the conversation? And what I've been thinking about is, you know, since I'm young, since I kind of need to read more before I have an informed opinion on a lot of subjects, the professional blog, you know, Marmaduke Fan 2.0, the point of that would be I do some reading on a topic, and then I give you kind of just a straightforward summary of, here is what I read, where even if I'm an idiot and I don't know what to think about economics or Karl Marx, I can at least give you a fair summary of the article or the book I read about Karl Marx. And then maybe I'll do like a, 1 week I'll do one perspective, and the next week I'll do the other perspective. So I'll read a Frankfurt's Marxist book 1 week and try to give you a fair and unbiased summary of that, and then I'll read I don't know, Friedrich Hayek or von Mises book the next week and try to give you a fair summary of that. And the idea of a summary is that I'll have my biases, you know. I've said I'm a traditional conservative. I've talked about being a religious Christian. Protestants, by the way, Reformation 500. Sorry, my boy Douglas Ernst. But I am on team 95 Theses. I was joking, maybe we should all post Martin Luther comics on October 31st and tag Douglas Ernst in them. That'd be pretty funny, guys. Right? In good cheer. Not to like deride his Catholic faith. I have a lot of respect for how Douglas Ernst will talk about his faith and talk about his beliefs on his channel in public, and will engage people fairly. Every interaction I've seen him engage in, he's trying to be civil, he's trying to be kind. That he gives me a lot of kind of information on, okay, here's what I should try to do as I talk. Man, 48 minutes, good grief. How'd I do that? Okay, let's try to wrap this up. This is also kind of a, I guess, attempt at a dry run at what it would be like if I tried to do a live stream. Do I have live stream skills? I do not have live stream skills because I get too distracted by everything. But what I do think I like doing is drawing and showing you guys what I'm doing as I'm drawing. And I've just been holding up the phone this whole time. I'm gonna have to get, since I'm talking about trying to be a bit more professional, I'm gonna have to get some actual gear that will allow me to do this here. Oh man, I am out of ink on like my one marker. Is there a Sharpie within reach of my bed? All right. Well, okay, here we go. So power through. A dyeing marker you can use to get a lot of grays, more like that's comparable to a brush, where I've worked with Chinese brush, Japanese brush, that kind of stuff. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, that's my favorite. I should dig that out again and just get warmed up on my Chinese brush. But you get all sorts of subtlety to the gray as opposed to just solid black and white. So I'm just gonna draw in gray. I guess these will be my equivalent of breakdowns, and I'll come over later with a fresh marker to add a few solid blacks. Okay, so Douglas Ernst gives me kind of a model for how to be civil to people, maybe. All right, so religion, philosophy, economics, all this stuff I'm interested in that doesn't really have to do with comics or my art. I think my main interest is art, right? The arts, painting and drawing. Comics then are semi-related to that because they are the use of art for the purpose of telling stories, right? That's focus number one. Focus number two is, since the very first video I did, is politics, social justice, philosophy, religion, all these ideas which come into these debates about comics, but are either secondary to the debate that's going on, or they're informing the debate that's going on in a subtle way, right? And I'm interested in this intersectionality, but not that kind of intersectionality. It's the intersection between related topics where they inform one another at some level, but they may not necessarily, sometimes the connection may not be that obvious. So what is the connection between politics and religion and philosophy and art and social justice and history? What do all these things have to do with one another? How do they affect one another? So the particular focus is art history and comics history. The broad focus is everything, which connects to my thesis that everything is relevant to you. Potentially, it's potentially relevant to you in the creation of art, because a beautiful nonfiction story might inform. So I'm going to have the texture of the grass kind of creating an implied panel again, where it's emptying out into space. Man, I'm just making this up as I go along, and that's okay. That's the point of this project. We're going to have a point here where kind of the white space starts, and then this is all foliage. All right, so I'm interested in the entire history of human knowledge, right? And you kind of have to come to the terms with the fact that you can't even read. You can't even just read the books that are about William Shakespeare in a lifetime. There's too much data and there's too much knowledge to absorb in 100 lifetimes and 1,000 lifetimes, let alone one lifetime. So what do you read about? What do you learn about? So I guess my thought is that learning is relevant to creating art, because to create art, you have to observe human life, you have to observe human history, you have to care about human life and us being on this planet. You have to care enough that you are willing to make something about things you observe in life or other people that you observe in life. And thus, studying history can inform your art, because you can then tell a great historical narrative. You can tell a narrative that touches on bigger philosophical issues that were relevant 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago or today, right? You're informing yourself through your reading and through your thinking. I call it feeding the imagination. I call it imaginative force, having the force of will necessary to, if you think, man, I don't know how to tell a good story, well, read 100 books, and then you will have a good sense for what a good story is within your gut, even if you don't think you have the imagination necessary to tell a great American story. It's that same issue again. Is it about natural giftedness, or is it about work habits and work and effort and diligence? And I think it has to be a bit of both. There may be a sense in which some people are just naturally gifted and you can't recreate that, but you can create within yourself the habits necessary to make you a talented person or a better artist or a better storyteller. So maybe you can't force yourself to be Shakespeare, but you can make yourself the best you that it's possible to be, so that when you tell stories, they're at the highest possible quality that you can get them. And that should be enough. You can't expect anything more of yourself than your absolute limits. Okay. What am I going to do here? So I've kind of implied this. I'm doing kind of expressive lines which go for my feel of this, which is creepy, unsettling. So I'm doing kind of, I feel within myself what I want to express in the line, and then I kind of hope that comes out in the end. And if something's not working, then I might go over it and rebuild it or draw on top. History. So I guess the problem with my style that I see is that, there's history to the drawing, but it's not necessarily, there's not necessarily much clarity. So what I would envision is if this was the start of the story, I'd probably have a word balloon here. I'm not going to draw a word balloon because I think I'd make that digital. Man, what would I say? Man, I'd rather have her say something in this space. Okay, what can she say? There are 3 creepy photos, but they're also not necessarily creepy. Donald Duck, Donald Duck, Donald Duck. Nephews, Uncle Scrooge. Okay, let's have her say Uncle Scrooge. I love that. Okay, all caps for cartooning. I can't believe this is still going. I'm gonna run out. Well, I've talked about every topic that's been on my mind in the back that I've been a bit too embarrassed to talk about, short of personal stuff I can't go into without potentially doxing myself. Yeah, I need to make a second channel that where #1 Marmaduke Fan remains my thinking through issues channel, but channel 2 is me trying to grapple with big subjects I care about and trying to grapple with them in a way where I feel like the work I'm making is helpful and it's not just who cares about the opinion of a guy named #1 Marmaduke Fan, right? That's what I love is I don't want to be pretentious. I don't want to be Mr. Philosopher on YouTube. I'm here to defeat all my foes and win all the internet arguments. I've seen some Armored Skeptic videos, and I admire his professionalism and his commitment to what he does, but I kind of don't dig just the general vibe of Armored Skeptic is all about Armored Skeptic. It's all, I don't know. He's a bright guy, but I always get the feeling from him that it's a bit too self-referential. It's taking itself a little bit too seriously, his style of video. So I kind of want this whole channel has kind of been an experiment in me not taking myself too seriously. Oh, that's so creepy. The drawing, I mean. But I do take serious. That's the thing. I feel like this channel is all about contrast in artistic styles, contrast in approaches, contrast in types of stories. And I'm trying to figure out what these contrasts are and what they have to do with one another. And now I'm even talking about a contrast in how I perceive myself and how I perceive myself compared to other people and what do I want to do. And the contrast. I lost it again. I lost that train, guys. The #1 Marmaduke thought train got crashed into the MAGA Trump train, and there's four-dimensional chess pieces all over the ground, scattered over. Put them in my folder with Hillary's emails and deleted them all. What am I doing? Okay. There are these beautiful ripples. Oh, I want to try to capture that. Okay, so I've just been kind of messing around and just adding lines. There are these beautiful ripples in the photo that EDS posted. So how do I capture that? It should be a kind of haze, a texture behind Uncle Scrooge that's pushing it forward. Because this is generally white, so this needs to be generally dark. Okay, I have an idea. All right, I have an idea artistically, and I'm still bloviating about the same subject over and over and over again, that I kind of don't know what I want to do and what am I going to do, and I think I've hit upon what I want to do, right? So #1 Marmaduke Fan is for quick ideas, quick thoughts, crazy stuff, self-deprecating humor, laughing about how goofy I am and how I'm trying to make things, and maybe trying to tell you guys stories that are a little bit more concrete than just me waxing on. #1 Marmaduke Fan does not have live stream skills. Maybe I can work on my casual presentation. Maybe I shouldn't try to talk while I draw. Maybe I should do the thing where I draw and then speed it up at the end. But I kind of like the idea of drawing with people in a live stream where we're all drawing and, we're chatting a bit in the comments about, you know, what we're all drawing. I'm checking out you guys' drawings online. That's what I dig, is the community aspect of being online, and that's what I want to have with #1 Marmaduke Fan. Phase 2, whatever the second channel for #1 Marmaduke Fan is going to be, you know, #2 Marmaduke Fan or whatever. The idea of that is I'm going to write essays. I'm going to have a script. I'm going to video edit it. I learned a little iMovie in college, so now I'll actually try to use some of that and make something that looks reasonably decent, like not just like laughably insane, me on my bed talking about everything that just pops into my brain, right? So that's the style distinction between the two channels, and the content. Then I guess the question is, what's the content focus of the second channel? And I think it will be art history, maybe with some philosophy, just for when I'm bored or getting distracted, as per usual. I'll dive into a little bit of philosophy or a little bit of economics, not as an expert, but just to kind of say, okay, here's an interesting book I read. Here's what I learned about it. What do you guys think? Am I wrong? And I'll try not to give too much opinion or editorial. I'm not going to editorialize in that, because the whole point of that channel will be me trying to learn something and give you a summary of, here is what I learned today. And so what we have learned applies to our lives to say. Is it obvious that I grew up on VeggieTales? Guys, God made you special, and he loves you very much. I already talked about the VeggieTales reboot and how much I despised the artistic direction they took that show in. It's too big a contrast with what the show was. It's not good character design. What am I even doing? Okay, ice feels cold. Okay, so I'm gonna shiver a bit while I make this and hope that comes across. I've just been kind of like making this up as I go, but I think it's going to kind of express my idea of the three photos together as an establishing shot. I'm going to add some, since I'm almost out, I'm going to add just some tone to this whole area. Oop, remember I have a phone in my hand. Now I'm really cheating, right? This won't work that well if I transfer it all to black and white later, but it is kind of a nice soft gray. And since I've killed this whole marker on this drawing, I might as well use the gray while I can. Okay, that's kind of nice. Can I add some gray too? I'm going to have some gray there, and I have a little gray here too. Sun. Cylinder. Suggest that cylinder shape. How's this working compositionally? Moving up. That's kind of just a big empty space there, but I kind of wanted that, since she's sort of ghostly, I wanted to give her kind of an emptiness around her. I've popped the balloon forward slightly. You get a little bit more gray, a bit more consistency back there. Okay, there we go. A bit more consistently gray. Manga, every insane thing that's popped into my head, all my neuroticism and inconsistencies and weirdness. An hour, good grief. Okay, I gotta wrap this up. I was kind of hoping this would be a 40-minute drawing, and now I've gone 20 minutes over that idea. Okay, so I want an hour and 3 minutes. I guess I bloviated a bit at the beginning. So draw for an hour. Try to draw all 3 drawings. You don't have to do it like kind of weird and artsy as I could. You could do just sort of your normal standard boxes, and maybe that'd be a bit more sane and probably little bit more conducive for a story at the end, because I don't know what the story is here yet, but I had some fun. I drew some pictures inspired by our boy EVS. Continue the story. If you don't want to draw the same 3 pictures I did, then pick up the next page, and I don't care how you draw. You know, I'm a little bit self-conscious about some of my weaknesses as an artist, but power through it. Don't sell yourself that you're not going to draw today. Draw today. I love you guys. I'm #1 Marmaduke Fan. the calendar of days wondering if I should be institutionalized is back to 0, but hoping to do more drawing with you guys in the future and talking to you about art. And I'm not going to start that second channel until I finish my big test, but once that comes, you know, I'll stop talking about it because now I've talked about it twice, and once it comes, it'll comes, and I'll work really hard on the content, and when I have some content, I'll share it with you and talk about it then. So if you like this crazy video about a creepy Donald Duck girl, then why don't you like, comment, and subscribe? And please do draw those 3 pictures from EBS's timeline. Put them on a comic book page. It could be a 1-page story. It could be a 3-page story. Start your epic novel using those 3 pages as your 3 pictures as your inspiration to get started. Do something cool with it. Share it with me on Twitter at NO1 Marmaduke Fan, or in the comments here at YouTube. And I don't know, let's just do some friendly trolling of our boy EBS and show him how many awesome drawings and ideas you can come up with based on just the premise of using those 3 photos somehow, or just any one of those photos in a little comic story. #1 Marmaduke Fan, love you guys. Catch you later.